Welcome to the Voices of Impact podcast, where we engage in spirited discourse on the world's most pressing issues with the goal to discover and implement solutions. We are an ambitious youth group, and we will not settle until we have tackled every challenge our world faces.
Previous generations have left us with a host of issues, but the world is ours. Join us as we learn life lessons and how to contribute to a more fair and uplifting planet. We will take the torch from older generations, learning from their mistakes.
We will glean wisdom from the experiences of adults who tried to prevent us from ending up with the issues that we face today, as well as the experiences of adults who, to this day, stand alongside us, fighting the southward progression of many spiraling dilemmas.
Tune in weekly as we approach these many quadrants through the lens of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, for the planet. Voices of Impact is brought to you by the University of San Diego's Jacobs Institute for Innovation in Education, PPC Profit Pros, and Schoolcast, a Cloudcast media program to empower the voices of young students around the world.
Today, we address the three main challenges for SDG 7, affordable. So firstly, we're going to cover a lack of access, and then we'll get more into the reliance on fossil fuels, and then we'll touch on energy efficiency. We'll wrap it up with some green Chile energy. Chile's green energy.
So, to start, let's talk about where the gaps are the largest. Over 700 million people globally still live without electricity. That's just wild to me in 2025. I would keep on wondering what's actually working to address these gaps. Shane, I know you had a little something on this.
Yeah, so basically, Kenneth, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole on rural electrification in East Africa, and something caught my attention. So this village cluster, which is in Tanzania, they have 5 microgrids, and they were installed through a private and public collaboration. But it wasn't just the solar panels. They actually also set up water pumps for plants and some like refrigerators for food and charging stations.
That's amazing because I remember seeing something similar in Bangladesh as well. So what they would do is they would install solar home systems and microgrids, but they would do it through more of a co-op model. Like families would pay little by little, like a subscription, and parts of those payments would go into a community emergency fund. And now they've hit over 2 million homes.
So did they achieve that with the co-ops all run locally?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because you would assume that most of these things are all fully government led, but there was a lot of local engagement as well.
Well, I was actually looking at the Philippines, specifically the Light It Forward mission. So some local volunteers just assemble solar lamps by hand and then distribute them to villages still using kerosene. It actually shows the importance of having light to study. This meant that test scores went up in lots of schools that started using those solar lights.
So we know it works, but I'm just wondering how we can scale it up, right? Because you're not just building hardware, you're also building the local ecosystems that involve training and financing and like community leadership and also the maintenance once you try to sustain this tech.
Exactly. Priorities vary. In some places want street lighting and others want power for fridges or water pumps. It really has to be a community-driven decision.
So in my head, then the question becomes, how does the UN or global networks support that type of grassroots driven electricity?
Right, because no one wants another top-down project that falls apart after 6 months.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to point out as well. I think UN has a big opportunity to build a global quote unquote microgrid marketplace. And this would be a program or a platform where successful village models are posted. And there's a breakdown of what tech was used, how it was funded, and how it's maintained. Then governments or communities in other countries can actually shop ideas that match their needs.
That's a brilliant idea. And then we could actually pair that with micro grants like 10K or 50K grants from the UN regional programs, which are tied to mentorships and follow up support. We can make it easy to double these good systems without reinventing the wheel, right?
Yeah, also, I think schools could be a gateway because there's this project in Nepal where schools, they were given solar power first, but then they train their students to help bring solar power to their own homes and to like their neighborhood areas. So basically, in that sense, education and access were braided together in one initiative.
And I'm sure that builds the next gen capacity too. Like, for example, the kids growing up in those villages are actually the ones that are going to be maintaining the power systems for, like, I don't know, 10 years from now on.
And imagine if they start making their own panels or batteries one day. Local manufacturing. I mean, isn't that all our dreams?
Yeah, so we're saying the best pathway is not just giving people access to power. It's like the saying, don't teach a person to, don't give a person fish. You got to teach them to fish. You have to give them access to power, literally and figuratively, right? Because you empower people to do things in their own area when you don't just give them access to power, but you teach them how to sustain it.
Certainly. I mean, you can make a difference even if it's using small steps. You can raise awareness or even support local solar projects. Anything can make a big difference in communities without electricity.
And getting involved with local nonprofits or school clubs focused on energy access can really help spread solutions.
Change starts with conversations. To our listeners, you got to use your voice to push for fair energy for all. We should be supporting legislation to this means. Coming up, we dig into fossil fuels and whether it's possible to phase them out fast enough without leaving people behind. Alright, we've lit a few bulbs. Now let's talk about the engines still burning oil. It's no secret that fossil fuels, they dominate global energy. And when you have dominance that strong, it's hard to shake. There's still investors investing in these industries. According to the International Energy Agency's 2024 update, fossil fuels, they still make up about 80% of global energy consumption. That's 80%. And that's despite record investment in renewables.
Yeah, I was a little concerned when I saw that even with all the solar and wind headlines, the global economy isn't just transitioning fast enough. And honestly, it's hard for some countries, especially those trying to grow their economies, to pull away from fossil fuels when coal or oil seems so much cheaper than.
I totally get that because I read about Nigeria, and so obviously it's a pretty sunny place, right? But the government, they spend billions every year on fossil fuel subsidies, which is crazy to me because it's the perfect place to enter, like to utilize solar energy. It's like the system's stuck basically because it takes more effort in the short term, more costs to switch to solar power than just to keep it the way that it is right now. But it would ultimately be like more economical and also better for the environment, obviously.
The same thing happens in India. A bunch of places just rely on coal, and when you shut down a coal plant, you're not just cutting down the emissions, you're cutting jobs, families, communities. That must be hard.
Yeah, that's why I think that it's important to have justice around this transition so that we can ease the shift for families that are relying on these outdated industries because phasing out fossil fuels, it's not just a climate thing, it's a social contract. And the UN's role could be, I'm thinking they could help countries write those contracts or like write some sort of means of not leaving anyone behind and not leaving families that rely on coal plants and whatnot just destitute without jobs. So no one gets left behind.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I think the UN's role should be more of a facilitator rather than trying to start up new things. I think they should be focused on trying to push things that are actually working and figuring out what the best way to doing that is. And you know what's interesting? I came across Uruguay. They've almost ditched all their fossil fuels for electricity. Like around 98% of their electricity came from renewables last year, if I'm remembering correctly. And it wasn't huge mega products. It was by building trust, long-term contracts, stable policies, and government guarantees that made renewable investment feel safe.
Whoa, that's really cool.
Okay, but how do you build that kind of trust policy in places where the government is changing all the time and it's not super reliable? Like, doesn't energy get super political at this point?
Honestly, I think it's a issue of trying to start small, like grassroots movements. How are we able to get local people actually interested in this stuff and actually feeling safe? And My little solution for that, I think, is we have community solar, we have local wind, stuff that people can see are actually working rather than just hearing about. Once the folks trust what's right in front of them, they're gonna believe more in the power it has to actually scale up to replace all the fossil fuel energy.
Yeah, well, we could also like start with transition pilots, I suppose, where small towns they fully transition from they don't like fully transition from fossil fuels, but they have like parts of them that transition or certain industries that transition to more sustainable energy and test it out. And I think that it will ultimately yield results that will make other industries want to follow. And we can let the world just watch that and learn that it can be done and that it's not something to be afraid of, and that it can ultimately lead to more value and more jobs by supercharging industries with more easily accessible energy from the sun.
Yeah, and I actually love that idea because we're also able to give those pilot towns international support. There are visible ways that we can actually make it scale, like through training, job guarantees, or even tourism, interestingly enough, to help grant the kind of pivoting tool that their economies need.
Yeah, we could even make the communities have like, I don't know, a transition bag that says this town went fossil free. And then, kids could see their home as not just a role model, but something that actually made a difference, not just a leftover.
Right. Like one of the main drivers I was learning of success is a feeling of importance. And so I think if we emphasize the importance that these like pilot towns or pilot industries have on advancing to sustainable energy, then we can encourage those moves.
And I completely agree. And how the UN can actually support this is, I think money is the biggest issue that they're gonna have. So I think the UN can help fund what I would call a quote unquote fuel switching fund. And this would be money that helps cities replace diesel vehicles or stoves with electric ones, but in a way that boosts local economies.
Yeah, we want to transform lives and livelihoods and not just, leave people destitute, as I was saying. And, if we can't address these like socio-political factors too, the whole process stalls because we won't be able to get enough support for it.
Yeah, but can I just say though, it's not all just doom and gloom. I found a very cool story about floating solar panels in Thailand. They're actually built on old reservoirs and they're now generating clean energy without taking up any land. Farmers still use the water and the shade actually reduces evaporation, which is really helpful.
Yeah, I actually read that too, Isabella.
Really?
The panels, I heard that they reduce algae growth. It makes the water better for irrigation, so I thought that was pretty cool that it's like killing multiple birds with the same stone or saving birds, I guess, because that's like good for not like algae growth is it can be bad if it happens too much, so that's better for the environment, I guess. So we're saving more birds with the same stone.
And I think we need more stories like that, solutions that feel tangible, hopeful, and replicable.
Yeah. So I just want to sum this up real quick. The fossil fuel problem, it's huge, right? But it's not immovable. Countries, they need some help weaning off of fossil fuels, but they also need some sort of example to look to, like pilot towns, so that they can see that a clean option is really viable for them. And while they're making these shifts, they need to be smart not to like leave people out of a job and to like address the social factors and like it's all about making efficient policies that again and I really want to like make this a tagline of like I'm trying to create a saying here. We want to save more birds with one stone. We want to save multiple birds with one stone. We want to create policies like the solar panels in Thailand that actually address many problems and are effective in terms of funding efficiency.
Exactly. And if the transition can actually make people feel better, then people won't resist it at all. They'd rather join it than go against it.
Yeah, I mean, switching to clean energy, it's not just for countries. It's like something that you can do on the domestic scale too. Just guys, try to choose renewable energy providers if you can. switch to solar panels, get electric cars. I know some of the government incentives, like I'm not sure if they're still there, but it's important for us to all do our part. If you get electric cars and you power them up with solar from your house, then that's pretty good for the environment. And I would strongly encourage doing anything you can, recycle, you know, use your there's a new feature, for example, in the Apple Home app where you can see what hours are the most energy efficient. Power your electronics, do your laundry during those hours.
Yeah, and not only choose the right thing, but choose to support the right thing. Maybe helping organizations or campaigns that encourage businesses to go green even helps shift the demand away from fossil fuels. A little help can go a long way.
Yeah, and I think that's a very common theme that we're seeing. We have to really find those small things that make a difference. And let's all come together to rethink how we're actually going to power our lives.
Coming up, the third hurdle on our list, we're covering energy efficiency. And this one's sneakier than it sounds. Okay, now for our final hurdle on the docket. Perhaps it's the least flashy, but arguably it's the most insidious, because this next hurdle is energy efficiency and losses. It's the kind of issue that hides in plain sight. Millions of kilowatt hours of electricity just slipping out of frayed wires. Appliances leaking electricity and grids are losing electricity. So we want to focus on the efficiency, getting farther with the same amount of electricity. According to the International Energy Agency's 2024 Energy Efficiency Report, we need to double our annual improvement rate. So we've got to go from 2% to at least 4% efficiency per year if we hope to meet the UN's targets by 2030.
And that's really not like a niche nerd problem. It
Yeah.
shows that inefficiency costs people money. I read that in sub-Saharan Africa, transition losses can actually exceed 15%, which is almost crazy to think about because every single time power is generated, a big chunk of it evaporates before it reaches homes. It's like you're carrying water, and every single time you come to and back from the well, you're losing
Right.
around like 15%, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We need to I think that's a great analogy. We should share that with policymakers and electricians. We need to figure out how to route energy more efficiency.
Yeah, but what's also sneaky? I found that the appliances can actually leak energy. My cousin actually told me that some old chargers
Yeah.
and the TVs still use power even when they're off. So if you accidentally leave something plugged in, you're still wasting energy.
I know. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
and that's the type of stuff that adds up. Multiply that across millions of homes and businesses. It's almost a disaster for both the grids and the planet. And what is just killing me is that a lot of these fixes are super basic. Like we just need better insulation, switching to LED bulbs, smart thermostats. I mean, it's stuff that's already available, but just like it's not in place yet.
Yeah, because there are implementation lags essentially. So it's not that we have a lack of tech, it's that there's a lack of awareness that that this stuff exists, and a lack of access to it perhaps in some places, and a lack of incentive. Yeah, it's better for the environment not to waste this electricity, but is it really worth it in the short term for the costs of upgrading your home systems to not bleed electricity? And this is to this point, I came across an urban retrofitting sort of campaign that's happening in Copenhagen, if I recall, where residents basically they map inefficiencies in their neighborhood using thermal drones. Not only did it inform different policy changes, but it actually made them proud that they were doing this. They had local pride that they were doing this thing for the environment and saving electricity and whatnot. So if you, in this case, you empower citizens to notice waste, and basically they become stewards of sustainability, and that's what we really should be as citizens. We should be stewards of sustainability, and we should all contribute to advancing the UN's goals. So I think this really exemplifies what Voices of Impact and the UN is all about.
I think that's really cool. It's like you're turning a boring issue into something
Yeah.
people can relate to.
And exactly, and not to brag. Okay, maybe a little bit. Japan's doing smart stuff too. I read a city about Yokohama where they've installed district heating and cooling systems that share thermal energy between buildings. So when one building gets too warm, then it could actually be moved to other buildings as well, and it creates that sustainability between one building to another so that there is no waste.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and then something that I would say is it's like kind of like a neighborhood energy co-op. I really love that idea. And it reminds me of another thing that I saw in Colombia where some low-income households have started using rooftop reflective paint to reduce cooling needs. Simple, cheap, but effective.
Wow, you have all the facts, Kenneth.
Yeah, yeah, and it's something really really interesting that I think because I feel like the more and more you go into this, you can only find out more things. So, I mean, there's all these solutions out there, but we're just not having access to the right information. Like, it's an internet search away.
Yep.
And can I throw in one too? I actually read something about in Singapore called the Smart Lamppost Project. So basically, the streetlights adjust their brightness based on real time foot traffic. So if no one's around, the light actually diminishes, which saves energy but still keeps everything safe.
So that's really awesome. That's high tech. I guess they use some sort of like facial scanning or something. Hopefully it's on device and they're not using it to control people and watch what everyone's doing. No, I'm kidding. But basically I see a pattern emerging here listening to you both. Efficiency, it doesn't require inventing anything new, like some crazy new complicated rocket science. It's like about feedback loops and like better designs and just trying to maximize what we get out of existing tech, like and tech that is already implemented in certain communities. And I think it requires a feedback loop. Like you collect data and then you adapt what's happening in real time and eliminate waste, not by doing less, but by doing things better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
If that
yeah,
makes
that makes complete sense. And now our question is, how do we keep the UN accountable for what they're supposed to be doing? What I believe that they can start doing is start some kind of infrastructure audits for cities that actually can't
okay.
afford them. Because if you don't even know where the problem is or how bad the problem, how are you going to solve it in the first place?
Yeah, and once you know, you could offer like toolkits to address the problem once you've identified it, like packages with like plug testers, for example, or you could fund LED swaps or insulation strips. I think one thing is we should be moving like a lot of lights to LEDs because they require a lot less energy.
Yes, and we can make it fun. We can, I don't know, gamify it in schools. We can, for example, make a game saying who can lower their household energy bill the most. You know, my brother or even I would personally really take that challenge.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. Contest to conquer entropy, if you will. No, I like it. I like it, Isabel. I can support that. I stand behind that completely. I think the stakes are serious, though. Even like it's funny, but the stakes are serious. Because I was reading in the UN's 2024 SDG progress report, if energy efficiency doesn't accelerate drastically, like if we don't become way more efficient with our energy, the gap between energy supply and sustainable access it will split so much.
Yeah, and I think at that point it's not even an issue of becoming green anymore. Efficient systems are becoming more resilient, less strain on the grids during heat waves, and less dependent on unstable imports. It's all about survival as well.
Yeah, and it's totally achievable. It's not like it's some impossible goal we can only reach in 100 years. No,
Okay.
the solutions are real. We just
Yeah.
need action.
Agreed.
Yeah. And simple actions like fixing leaks, using energy efficient bulbs, and turning off unused devices actually save more money and energy. It comes back to the thing of if you didn't buy yourself a cup of coffee every single day from Starbucks, how much money would you save?
Right. I mean, we're trying to start like a movement here. I understand that this isn't any kind of French Revolution. I was just learning about that. Like it's a quiet revolution. We're not hanging people here. We're not hanging investors in coal, but it's easy to join and it creates powerful results. So I don't think we should wait until we've hemorrhaged another decade of watts and wallets. Let's power smarter.
And that's well said, Shane. And that brings us to our next section where we talk about some bright spots on the global map, places that show what's possible when solutions meet courage. Back to Chile, right? When it launched its national green hydrogen strategy, they aimed for 5 gigawatts by 2025 and 25 gigawatts by 2030, and hydrogen cost around 80 to $1.10 per each kilogram.
But there have been delays. Like they tried to do this, but like environmental concerns arose. They were worried about like water overuse, and then also slow permitting processes.
And they still need ports and rules for exporting hydrogen. Brazil and Australia are actually also competing.
I think that shows like that bold vision. In this case, it needs bureaucracy streamlined and community to be included, right? Because the UN could offer technical advice and seed funding for local permit processes and infrastructure, but you need that connectivity. So I think that we should still learn from I'm going to keep calling it green Chile hydrogen. It's more memorable that way. And I think that these grassroots projects are important, but we need to email, we need to contact, send letters to local government officials and figure out how we can get state level funding for these processes. And together, listeners, we can make a big difference.
Yeah, just like you said, Shane, even if there are multiple solutions, it won't really matter or make a difference if people don't take action.
Well, that was a blast. Listeners, we've got more in store for you because our World Council of Youth, they have demanded us to start working on next week's episode 8, Zero Hunger. So we'll be getting research prepared to deliver you another compelling episode of Voices of Impact. This episode has been produced by myself, Shane Stamler Adamson. Thank you for listening to Voices of Impact.
We hope you enjoyed the Voices of Impact podcast, where we engage in spirited discourse on the world's most pressing issues with the goal to discover and implement solutions.
Our mission is to overcome global and societal conundrums through student unification, accepting our roles as future stewards of planet Earth. Please consider sharing this episode with other humans to enable spirited youth discourse on the planet's most pressing issues.
If you learned something or felt empowered by this episode, tune in Saturdays for more student-led change-making conversations, and be sure to follow, share, and positively rate our show.
Voices of Impact is brought to you by the University of San Diego's Jacobs Institute for Innovation in Education, PPC Profit Pros, and Schoolcast, a Cloudcast media program to empower the voices of young students around the world.